All right, we should be live. This is my usual are we live moment. And I believe it should be going live momentarily. Yep. It is. It is. We are live.
It's happening.
It is happening. How are you doing? Happy Wednesday.
Hey, happy Wednesday to you. Cheers.
Cheers. We've got some whiskey going on. Eyes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Let me redo that.
Yeah, okay.
So sloppy.
Eyes,
Very nice.
eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my mom is on. Hey, Mom.
Hey, Luis's mom.
She's tuning in all the way from Spain, España.
Love it. Is that so? Yadrana? That's her.
Jadrana.
I'm sorry. Say it one more time for the white girl.
Jadrana.
Jadrana. Okay, I'll get it. Hello.
Yeah, Jadrana. You can call it Jaji.
Jaji. I love that.
Yeah, that's how she goes by. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm super excited because today we have a really, really awesome guest. We'll get to him in a second. But we also have the giveaway that we're giving away the audiobook. We have a really fun activity planned. Jolene is looking amazing. I've got this like new microphone that's dangling over my face. This is kind of like the setup that I had when I was doing the audiobook, so I feel like it's apropos. But yeah, Joe, before we go to our guest, anything you want to say or check in with?
Goodness,
Neither of us have really eaten today.
Yes, we were strategic about that, so that's exciting. And this week I feel like each one of these weeks has its own flavor of what the shit is happening in the world anywhere. And for us, especially in the US. I mean, I don't know. I know last week was rough. This week, I'm grateful, Luis, that we're doing this because this is always a bright spot amidst the chaos.
Yeah, it's a lot of chaos. There's a lot going on, and I mean, I think you mentioned it a few weeks ago when we, did the episode with Tori, how Whine and Whine started of just two people having a conversation, and conversation is really important, especially times like these where there's so much going on so many different levels. So everybody keep the conversation going.
Yes, please. I think that's a great motto for today. The hype about things will die down, and people tend to stop talking. And especially with the state of things right now, a lot of people I know are introverted, and they start to hermit. And so we can tell you guys anything. Just keep talking, keep the conversation going.
Just keep conversing. Just keep conversing. Okay. Anyway, before things get derailed too far, let's bring on John. So John is the author of The Brightlands, which is a queer supernatural thriller from Hanover Square Press. It comes out this coming Tuesday, July 7th. Super, super excited. I had the immense honor of doing the narration for the audiobook. It is a behemoth of a book. It is super fun. It is intense. It is dark. It is twisted. It is gay, and it is awesome. So definitely check it out. And I hope that you all submitted because we do have a giveaway for one of the free audiobooks. But definitely pre-order as well. Without further ado, here is John.
Hey,
John. How's it going?
It's going. How are y'all?
Good.
Great.
Thank you for joining us.
We're so excited to have someone of your, intellectual caliber to join us.
Oh, honey. Give me like half this wine bottle. It won't be so calibrated. Don't worry.
Well, cheers. Thank you for joining us. We'll do a little toast.
Cheers. Yeah, hold on. I need to pour a fresh glass.
Oh, okay.
Oh my goodness.
I feel like I need a manicure. What is going on? What is this? This is not level. This is not level.
Quarantine nails. Seriously.
Well, I just trimmed the beard. Cheers.
Cheers.
I just trimmed the beard. It was like literally I look like Tormund or whatever his name is from Game of Thrones.
Tormund.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So John, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from Manhattan, New York.
Where are you in Manhattan? I used to live in Harlem, 133rd Douglas. Yeah.
Oh, dope. I'm on Harlem too, 116th Street and Lenox.
We're like We could have been neighbors if we were there. That's
But
great.
walking distance.
Yeah, I loved living there, and I used to run in Riverside Park. Oh, how cool.
I know. It's a really, I got very lucky with this apartment. You know, it's like the city, I've been in the city going on 4 years now, and this is like, it's fun to like get, you know, in it to win it.
Yes.
It's fun. It's great.
But you're originally from Texas, correct?
Yeah, sorry. I am originally from Texas. I have lived in New York now for 4 years. Like I said, I was in Texas 25 years. 25 years.
What was that like?
Hot. And it's a really long, like, it's a long, I could tell you like a long story of it. I mean, basically, I think it's a hot place. It's, you know, you feel like you're in the past in a lot of ways because you're in like, I grew up in Waco, which is a very small, it's a very small city that feels even smaller because it's very segregated still and just very stuck in its ways. And it was like shocking when I went to Austin, Texas, when I was like 21 or 22, when I went for like the first time, you know, as an adult, and like went out to like a gay bar and like went to like a museum and like saw all of these like ways of life. And it just really blew my mind. I was like, oh wow, there's like parts of the world where people like are on the internet and like watch, you know, foreign movies with subtitles, and like, what is happening? This is amazing. It's a very different way of living.
Well, I'm curious about, so you said the first time you went out to a gay bar, is it possible to sum up that experience? I mean, was that just I don't know, what was that experience like?
Well, that's a good question. You know, honestly, I think that I was kind of underwhelmed the first time I went out because, like, when you live in like the middle of nowhere, there's this real danger to ascribe a degree of sophistication and nuance to the cities that is not necessarily going to be there, especially because when you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't travel, and like when I grew up, we were pretty broke when I grew up, so we didn't travel like at all. So the city as a concept was everything from LA to New York to Austin to like, you know, Miami or something. Like, it's all these cities are like one sort of monolithic entity of the city. And so when you finally go to one and you finally go out to like a gay bar, something really free and really like, you know, of its own, it's playing by its own rules, right? Like, you go out to a space like, I think my first gay bar was Rain on 4th Street in Austin, Texas. And if you've ever been there, like, it's really, the boys are cute, the dance floor lights up, and it looks like every gay bar everywhere. But at the time you walk in and you think, wow, what a strange space. And then, you know, within about an hour, you're like, where's the like intense, kinky, like sex that you imagine from New York? And where is the like famous people you imagine from LA? And where is the like, you know, freewheeling intellectual culture? Like, where are these things? And instead it's just, you know, a lot of hot boys in tight clothes, like scowling at each other. And that's great. I mean, that's a vibe. But yeah, it took me a very long time to sort of understand how to like move in a space like that when your social life consists of like 3 Craigslist tricks and like a cow.
Wow. I mean, the hot boys glaring at each other kind of is reminiscent of West Hollywood, though, in fairness to Los Angeles.
Okay, great. I'm glad I wasn't too far off.
By the way, you know you're dealing with an author when they say things like monolithic entity.
Oh, Jolene, I've read the book. Try narrating his writing. It's
Oh no, I'm piecing this experience together, and by the way, I'm plagiarizing. I'm storing that for later use. I'll credit you in conversation, but that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's, you know, I sit at the desk a lot. It has an effect on you.
No, but I mean, your voice is so distinct and it's so specific. And while, you know, you use vocabulary that probably the regular person doesn't really use, it's still very relatable. And I think that's one of the things that I loved about the book so much. And it's out there. I mean, like it does, you know, it has its crazy parts. But it was still like super, super relatable and like really human at the end of the day, which was awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, the Brightlands. So like, how did that book kind of like come about? Because it is set in Texas. Is it something like from your upbringing as far as being in Texas? How did the book come about?
So, it was tricky. I was in New York. I'd been in New York for about a year at that point, and I had been involved in a couple like off Broadway things, like really small, kind of like cobbling together work, trying to figure out how to like be a writer. And I had been working on this novel for forever that wasn't going anywhere, a totally different book. And I was in my agent's office, and like, his assistant just kept like bringing me espresso, so I was just getting like really keyed up. And he was finally like, we had talked about a bunch of other business, and he was like, "So what else is on your plate?" And I was like, "Well, I just had finished watching Twin Peaks, the new Twin Peaks season 3, the really crazy one." And I was like, "Man, that ended so well," and I was like really hyped. And I was just like, I was just like, what would happen if there was like a small town in Texas like that, and they had all these oddballs, and the quarterback went missing, and it was this whole thing. And my agent was like, "Oh yeah, you should go write that book." And so I wrote this book about like, this guy who's a really successful financial analyst in the city, but he's been out of Texas for about 10 years now. He left under really bad terms from a very tiny town. And then one night he gets a text message from his brother, who's a very successful quarterback. And Joel, the main character, sort of thinks like, wow, this kid should have everything, lined up for him. Why is he so upset about something? Whatever's bothering Dylan, his brother, Dylan's not saying. So Joel decides to go back to Texas. Dylan goes missing, and Joel just kind of starts pulling on this thread and getting a lot of people involved in this much bigger mystery. But really the germ of it was just like, what if it was Twin Peaks but Friday Night Lights? And then on top of that, it was like, for me myself, I had this epiphany where I was like, oh, I still have family in Texas who are going to need my help at some point, even as I'm out here living my best life. So I need to start thinking about that kind of responsibility. So those things just sort of like converged, and then it got really fun from there because I got to blow stuff up.
Nice. So did you set out to do anything with the book? Like, did you write it intentionally with like some sort of like message in mind, or did it just kind of like come out? Like, what was the process like?
It was interesting. I was honestly really angry. I was really, really, really angry because, I had been out of Texas by that point for about 2 years, or about a year and a half, and I was like really getting frustrated with the way that the worst aspects of Texas had sort of taken over this whole country, because Texas has so much of what we would consider the worst sides of modern day conservatism. It's very selfish. It's very churlish. It kind of masquerades indifference as independence, and all these things that I was like very irritated and like horrified had become like the national character. So on the one hand, I was like, wow, I could probably talk about the country via Texas if I knew what I was doing. And then on the other side of that, I was very, very tired of the way queer literature is so much about queer victimhood, and there's very few stories of queer heroism. So I was like, how can I take a character like my character Joel? He's very much like I think he's in Chelsea. Like, he's a Chelsea gay. He's hot. He's successful. He probably spends a lot of time trying to look like all the other guys he wants to sleep with. But at the same time, he's got a complex inner life. He's got a complex story that he's maybe not acknowledged for the past decade. So what would happen if somebody like that needed to be proactive, needed to be a hero, and then we start kind of ramping up the pressure on him? So those two thoughts just sort of, they kept overlapping. So I was like, okay, I can really play with the country, and I can play with this sort of gay and just cause things to go and just, really start popping off. And so once I got into the meat of it, it just got more and more fun to sort of manipulate those two things.
Nice. So did it start with Joel? Was it Joel and Dylan were the two kind of like first things, and then you branched off from there?
I think I started with, honestly, I started with the town of Bentley, because I had Bentley, Texas, which is where the book takes place. I had started with it because another project, I had a character from the Sticks, and I knew he was from somewhere called Bentley out in the middle of nowhere. And so I had the name, and I had this sort of vague idea of the town. And so then I started thinking about how pleasant it is to work in a form like, having something like Friday Night Lights as like your sort of archetype, because you have so many types of people sort of built into that narrative. You have cheerleaders and like snotty like quarterbacks and stars and losers and like this whole like it feels very like Netflix almost, because you've got this whole like structure of characters built in. So I knew I could manipulate those people and have fun with those people. And then I was like, oh, I need an outsider to come into that and start, kicking over rocks. So, and then pretty quickly the dynamic between Joel and Dylan clicked into place, just because like it gave me kind of a heart for the novel. Like it gave it sort of a beating heart to something that the reader could periodically be reminded of why this matters so much, because it means so much to the main character, because you need that in a big book like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the sibling relationship is really interesting. Jolene, did you want to jump in? Did you?
Oh, well, just because I'm learning about you here on the fly, is Brightlands your second book, third book? What how many books have you got under your belt?
I mean, I've written a lot. This is the first to be published.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is my debut, which is exciting. You go through a lot of books. Like, I'm always really impressed with the people who, especially the folks who like start in their 40s, then they just like write a novel and sell it. Like, mazel tov to them. That's incredible. I've been trying to do this for years. Like, you go through a lot of failures, and you go through, or not failures, but you go through a lot of files that you'd rather not open. They're just lingering somewhere on your hard drive.
Do you have? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go.
No, I was gonna say, kind of like along those lines. Is there a book now that you are a published author that you want to revisit and publish again, or are you just kind of moving forward with new material altogether?
There are definitely stories. What's interesting about being published, or about like having that degree of success, is that you are much more aware of what it takes to sell a book. Right. And so there are other projects from the past that I've looked at and been like, oh, okay, for this to work, I need to strip out, this subplot in like sub-Saharan Africa or whatever. Like, this isn't going anywhere. Like, you're much more, I think if you have any kind of work ethic, it's really easy to sort of accumulate pages of material. The hard part is knowing, like, okay, who am I writing for, and what do they want to read, and what will they spend $30 on? And I feel like it's much more useful to get through that process once, because now there are definitely projects I can look back on and be like, you can sort of cannibalize them for parts and be like, okay, these three characters are great, let's get them out of here and give them their own book.
Well, who doesn't like a side plot in sub-Saharan Africa? That would be my question. That sounds
me too, but it sounds expensive. I gotta go. You gotta research it. It's a lot of work.
Well, and then what was your journey to becoming an author, or did you always know? I'm always fascinated with artists, like whether they had to find that career or they always knew, since they were a kid, this is what I'm going to do with my life.
Definitely the latter. So I was really sick as a kid. Like I was a really just kind of ill child. Part of it, I think, was I just didn't want to go to school with straight people. Yeah, so I was just always sick and not dealing with it. But I remember one time I was in the process of calling my mom to pick me up, and I was in like my school's like principal's secretary's office. And she was pretty chill. She kind of clocked what was going on, and she was just like, John, I'm sorry you feel so bad, but like one of these days you're not going to be able to hold down a job if you keep calling in sick like this. And I think to her, she was trying to nudge me to be like, hey, you really should take this maybe a bit more seriously. Like, you're going to get in trouble. For me, I was like, can we swear on this show, by the way?
Yeah.
Parenthetically. Okay, because I was just like, I heard that and I was like, fuck you, fuck that.
Just not the F word. That's the only one we're not allowed.
Yeah, now we gotta.
Yeah, we gotta start over.
Start it all over. Well, I was just like, forget you, lady. I don't need you. I don't need this like job. I don't need capitalism. I'm going to be a writer. And I base all of this on, do you know who Mary Higgins Clark is?
Yeah. I used to read her all the time.
I was reading a bunch of Mary Higgins Clark, and I remember like flipping to the back author picture, because Mary Higgins Clark famously would buy a new piece of jewelry with every book that she sold. And so she's always in like some new set of like pearls and diamonds, and she just oozes lavishness. And I remember like flipping open a Mary Higgins Clark author photo and being like, I know how to write one of these books. She does okay. I'm going to be her. And literally that like got me started, because I was just like, I had no idea how successful Mary Higgins Clark was. And I was just like, these books are fun. I think I could write one of these eventually. So I'm not going to worry about holding down a job. And so that literally became like, I like never really strayed after that.
Did you ever think of walking away? I feel like every artist has that moment where they're like, maybe I'll quit.
Yeah, I mean, so I graduated high school super early, and so I was going to community college, and I had an associate's by the time I was 18, like a 2-year degree, which you can't do anything with in this country. But I was just like, I was whatever. But I was also like, my family was super poor, and we also weren't on good terms at the time because I was gay, and I was like, we can't really. There was no way I could go to school. Like, there was no real feasible way I could go to college. So I was just like, basically, I was going like part-time online, but working a lot to try to make ends meet, just at like a grocery store. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. So I just dropped out. I never finished college. And then when I moved to New York when I was 25, I realized, oh dear, this is a very expensive city. And it's even worse if you don't have a degree. And my career options were very limited. And it was, I was 25, so you're independent of your parents, so I was eligible for a lot more like financial aid and stuff. So I was this close to going back to school. I mean, like really, the day the deposit was due to go back to school was the day my agent called me about the proposal that I had written for the Brightlands. Like, I was literally hours away from going to put in my deposit and return to school, and my agent called me about the Brightlands and was like, "This is great. When can you have it by?" And I was like, oh, I don't know, I got to go back to school. And there's this like long pause on the phone. And he's like, can you give that like a year so I can sell this book? And so I didn't go back. And it worked out. Like, I can't believe it worked out. But yeah, that was the closest I came. So it's about 3 hours away from committing to something I didn't want to do.
Wow. I love those like serendipitous moments that are just like, no, like come back. But sometimes you need them. You need to have like those moments of like, yeah, I'm gonna bite the bullet and like do something that to like have life just be like, no.
Yeah. Seriously. No, it's valuable, and it gives you, it makes you so incredibly grateful for what you've got, because basically by that point I had been working on the book for I think 3 months, and I'd like outlined it, and I'd written the first several chapters, and I had kind of just a general perspective of where it was going. And so my agent called me, I think in like November of 2017. And then September of 2018, like a little under a year later, we sold the book. And it was just, it was crazy. It was like there was an auction for it. Like it did very well. So I was just, it's one of those things where I would have been grateful no matter what to have sold the book, but to have those circumstances where it almost didn't happen, it does make you really trust your gut in a way that I think is very valuable, and you don't get many of those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's amazing. And like Hanover Square Press is a really big publishing company. And like, so first of all, congratulations, good on you. Second of all, I think it's really like telling also about like queer stories starting to really come to like the forefront and no longer just be kind of like a fringe genre. So, I mean, how do you feel about that? Like, because you started to mention like queer stories like earlier in the conversation. Like, how do you feel about such a big publisher releasing a queer novel where like the queer character, well, there's more than one queer character, but like one of them is the hero and not just kind of like the victim? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, I will say I wasn't as shocked, just because there were other, so I not to equate the experience of queer people or queer men with like Black people or people of color, but I was seeing a lot of books from BIPOC protagonists doing very well, and I was like, okay, there is a hunger for diversity. Like, this is changing. It's not changing fast enough. It's not changing with the dollar amount that these people maybe deserve, but it's happening. And so I knew as I was writing the book that I had a really good feeling about it, because I was like, there's something going on here. There's something special in the air today. So let me capitalize on that. So of course, looking back on it, I'm like, oh my God, if you had told me at 12 when I wanted to be Mary Higgins Clark that I'd be able to be Mary Higgins Clark, but with gay people, like, that would have blown my mind. But, I got to give people credit. I mean, like, Hollywood has actually helped a lot in this regard. Like, television and Netflix is really, not just Netflix, but like Streamium, like the whole like, Golden Age TV has actually helped the entire culture to open up to new and diverse voices. So on the one hand, I just feel incredibly fortunate. We'll see if it actually like sells next week, but so far it's crazy. What was crazier was when I realized that I wasn't going to be a spring release, which is typically when literary novels are published, and it wasn't going to be a June release, which is when you get the Pride money, like you get all your Pride campaign money. It was going to be a July release, which is when the blockbusters come out. So that was really crazy.
Oh, wow.
Because your placement in the calendar really matters, because like not most, but a lot of the really chic literary novels that people don't expect to make a ton of money, but they expect to like garner a lot of like critical attention and maybe win some awards, those typically come out in like summer and fall. And then summer is for like the big money makers, summer and Christmas. So the fact that my publisher isn't just publishing a queer novel, but they're publishing it as one of their like lead summer titles, that was really crazy. That was when I was like, holy shit, there's a lot riding on this.
I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. Are you nervous at all? Or are you like, cool, I got this?
I mean, I was much more nervous back probably in January, February, because that was when, so January and February is when you start to see lists like Entertainment Weekly's top 20 books to buy for your cat this summer. And like those sorts of big, like those lists that so in pre-corona times, they mattered a lot because they were what people would see when they were buying their People magazine or their Entertainment Weekly or whatever at the grocery store on their way out. And I wasn't seeing myself in as many of those, which is no fault to my publisher. They're very competitive. They're very hard to get into. But I was like, that's when I was freaking out, because I was like, I need to break out somehow to make that. Because the problem with getting a nice book advance is the way publishing works. An advance is literally just an advance on your royalties. It means that I don't get paid again on this book until I make enough money off of it. My publisher pays back what they paid me. And royalties. So it needs to sell quite a few copies, which is, again, not scared about it now, because basically what happened is in January, February, I was really concerned that it wasn't getting a lot of traction, and other July books were. And I was like, I need to figure out something here. And I was working with my publisher, and I knew that they were like ready and willing to send out copies. So I was like, let me just start hitting up Instagram. Like all of these, there's such a culture of like bookstagrammers, and they're just these influencers with like 10, 30, 40,000 followers. And I was like, let me start like just chatting with people, because as a gay man from the like 90s, if I know one thing, it's how to like leverage myself on Instagram. So I just started like, I made literally this like 200 person spreadsheet and just started working my way through it and just like cold calling these people, basically like DMing them and asking like, hey, do you want a book? And it started to work. And so it started to create like this, and then it became a buzz. Then it became by around like, April, May, then it was people DMing me asking for copies. And that's when I was like, oh, we're on to something. Because what was crazy is when COVID hit, a lot of the old barometers of a book's success or a book's attention started to kind of drop away, because we didn't have print, and we also didn't have bookstores, because bookstores is where you can just walk in and some super smart person who's reading, poets and writers and Book Page and all these trade presses can then be there to answer all your questions. And that's just not the case. So the fact that the book has found a really welcome home on Instagram has made me much less, like, you still have to sell a lot of copies. There's still a ton of work to be done. Of course, you get anxious if you get too in your head about it, but I'm not nearly as nervous for it as I was like right before COVID hit. And I was like, nobody's going to read my book. Now we're great.
Well, I love that you shared that story about like, even though you still had a publisher who's a huge publisher, backing you and doing a lot of legwork, you still got your hands dirty and still like did your own kind of like outreach and kind of promotion yourself. Because a lot of people, just when they get like a little bit of a break and they hand it over, like they're like, all right, I'm just going to sit back and see what happens. Like, no, I love that you are still kind of like at the front lines of your own success, which I think is a really great lesson for anybody, really. And I think I wanted to ask you about this just because from reading it, yes, it's I introduced it as a, queer supernatural thriller, and it's super gay, but it also isn't. Like, it's not like the sexuality or the fact that there are queer characters is what makes the book interesting. Like, it's not the end all be all of the plot or anything along those lines. So do you feel do you feel that way about like your audience? Do you feel like this is primarily a queer audience that's going to enjoy it, or given the outreach that you've done with other bookstagrammers, what kind of audience do you think this book will find?
I mean, honestly, I wrote it for like weird girls with blue hair in like at the excerpts of Texas, because like men, if you break down just like the sales demographics of fiction, of novels, men do not buy books to nearly the degree of women. And then queer men actually, like, they buy like 3 books a year. And then those are usually the books where like hot middle class dudes feel miserable for about 250 pages. So I was like, that's nothing that interests me. Like, I don't care to write that. So I was like, how can I knew that I had to appeal to women, and I knew that I wanted to appeal to women. I didn't just want to write a book for middle class men, gay men to feel superior about. And so I you have Joel, the main character, who is the heart of the novel, but you also have a big cast of other people, one of whom is
huge
Saoirse Clarke.
Huge cast. Enormous, huge cast of 50 plus characters.
How many speaking roles did you want?
50 plus.
Yes.
50.
Sorry.
I have a list somewhere.
Did you really? 50 plus? I've heard you talk about this before. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, 50 plus speaking characters, yeah. And they're all great, and they all have their own voice. Like, it was a daunting, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it also was right there for me.
Yeah, you were doing Southern accent for this, right?
I was doing a Texas accent, yes.
Oh,
and
God,
then
I heard a great many different accents during the prep time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get.
It was really, really good to do a Texas accent. John is like, what?
I mean, honestly, dude, just to spill some tea, like, they send me a lot of samples. They sent me quite a few samples of different people who were potentially going to do the audiobook, all of whom were very talented. But there was like 2 with like anything approximating a Southern accent. So congrats, sir. Like, you were at the top of my pile.
Thanks. I'm glad my British accent passes for Waco, Texas. I'm just kidding. It's not. I promise I did not do a British accent.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who would be. Yeah, no, let's not go down that road. Anyway, yeah, that was when we first met. Actually, was when we did like an hour-long coaching session on Texas twang. Yeah.
No, we spoke for quite a while, and we talked about questions about characters. Like I said, actually, I had a long list of questions, but most of them were just like little pronunciations here and there. But I feel like your book was really self-explanatory. Like, the characters each had their own voice. They were fun. They were distinguished. They were real. Nobody was perfect, which I think is so interesting when you write characters, that even the heroes have like a somewhat fragmented past where it's like, oh, was this right? Was this not right? Are they behaving in ways that they should be behaving? I like that even the heroes have their own kind of like, imperfections. We do have a question actually from one of our very, very loyal listeners, Alex Packer.
Okay.
He says, Alex, he's actually tuning in from England. England?
Yeah, thank you, Alex.
Welcome.
Yeah, it is 11:30 over there. He was very excited that this was going to be at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Mm-hmm. So he says, John, how did you know when you'd finished the book? Was it like one moment?
No. No, there's actually, if you're an English listener, you probably know her. There's a British crime writer named Ruth Rendell who was really influential for me growing up. She was one of those writers. I mean, she just basically like clockwork had a book out every like 9 months. Like, this woman just worked. It was like a little baby. Like, every 9 months she just had a new novel out. And she was being interviewed one time by an American radio station back in like the 90s. And I dug up the radio conversation somehow. God knows how. I was very young when I heard this. And had just, like, this was probably right around my Mary Higgins Clark moment. And I was listening to her, and she basically said, like, they said, oh, what's it like when you're finished with a book? And she said, it's like Tuesday. It's just like, you're just done. I mean, and it's never done. That's the other thing. Like, so her metaphor was basically what she was saying is like, you see in the movies where you've got some like writer who's just like scribbling really furiously, and then they just put their pen down and walk away, and it's done. And it's like, it's really not that. It's like the revising a novel, especially a novel with like a lot of moving parts, just basically means I had like a whole wall of Post-it notes, and just every day I would sit down and clear out as many Post-it notes as I could. And they were literally just things like, give this person this line of dialogue, make sure this person references this because the reader will forget what it is, make sure that like this person has a knife and it's here and then it's here, like those sorts of threads. And then one day I looked up and there were no Post-its, and then I just read the book through one more time and sent it to my agent, and we sold it 6 weeks later for like like it's not a dramatic moment, it really wasn't. And then you think it's done because it's sold and you got your check and you're like, oh wow, I'm really living. And then you get your first editorial letter from your publisher, and your editorial letter is a really lengthy breakdown of the book, and then it's also got line edits, and like every single page has a note. And then you do that, there's 3 rounds of that, so it's like it never quite feels done. Funny story, actually, when I was like done with this book, like when it went to printer, so you do 3 rounds of editorial and then you do 3 rounds of copywriting typically. And like the copywriting can be really light, but my first round of copywriting, like because of the way our scheduling had worked out, I like read through the whole book out loud, made a lot of edits. And then the second round was mostly just like making sure everything was correct like I wanted it to be. And then the third round, I actually caught COVID. I had COVID for a hot second in mid-April.
Oh, wow.
And like the morning I woke up with my like crazy fever. I was at like 102, and I was just like shoveling like Advil down my throat just to like get better. I get an email from like my editor's assistant, and she's just like, hey, just wanted to make sure you're clear with this last round of copy edits. Can we get it back in 3 days? And I was like, it's fine. I didn't even open it. I was like, I am so sick. I'm not going to get better for a while. And I just literally sent it back to them. So I really hope that they did everything I told them to, because I haven't checked.
Wow.
But it's at the printed now, yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you are okay. I mean, that's
Thank you.
That's nuts. What I mean, how long was your recovery?
Honestly, I was only sick for a few days. I didn't even think I had COVID. I just thought I was like had the flu or something, and then had even like a bacterial thing, because they at the time they didn't really know what to do, so they gave me like a Z-Pack and some just whatever, and I took the Z-Pack, and honestly within 2 or 3 days within 2 days my fever was gone, and I still was like, I didn't leave the house for 2 weeks and quarantined and everything, but I thought I was sure it was not COVID, and then I got the antibody test that they're doing in the city, and it said I had it, so I'm guessing I had it. But no, I was totally fine. I mean, it was just I just stayed in bed for like 2 days, so it wasn't that bad.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad.
Well, I have a compound question for you. Question number 1: which character is most you? Your favorite.
Well, it's tricky to talk about this book, honestly. Like, what's made this really torturous is because it's not... Everything is a spoiler. Like, Luis can attest to this. Like, the point of the book is you hit, like, page 150, and it starts to sort of unravel, and everything starts to flip on itself. So it's very challenging to talk about that without spoiling.
No spoilers. This is a spoiler-free.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I'm like making a career on surprising people, so this is like the one thing I'm really good at, is like talking around like a lot of stuff. There's several characters I don't like. You have to have yourself in like everybody you write. I think like you need to see yourself, at least in the main characters. You need to see like a piece of yourself that's really like kind of dredged up from you. Like, not to be super dramatic about it, but like for me, I just get bored. Like if there's not something in that person that's getting me excited, I'm not going to get out of bed in the morning and work on it. But Joel's friend, Starsha, or she's not really a friend at the beginning. She's like his first girlfriend back when he like needed a beard in high school. And then when they ended on very bad terms, and then he left town. But Starsha is she's basically like, she never left. And I was really like, she was kind of who I could have been if I had stayed in Texas, because she's smart and she's intelligent, but she's not always like the wokest, but her heart is in the really like in a right place, and she doesn't back down, and I really admired a lot about her. So she was kind of who I always wanted to be.
She's great. She's a great character.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And then what's next for you?
Oh wow. I'm finishing. You know, it's weird. Book publishing is very competitive. I do have a book coming out. Or I do have a book that I'm finishing right now, actually. So we'll see what happens with that. If all goes well, we'll see it next year. But I mean, the only way to make a living at this gig is to write a book every year or two. So I'm always working on something.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna put you to work a little bit right now, just as a little thank you for putting me through the ringer of narrating the book. So I thought I would give you a little bit of a taste of your own medicine. I have gathered some passages from famous books, and I would love for. I'm gonna throw one up, and I might actually have Jolene do it as well. But so basically what will happen is I'm going to throw up a passage, and then I've gathered some characters, so a famous person, whether living or a character, an adjective, and an adverb. So you're going to narrate the given passage with those three things in mind, and whoever's watching, if you want to throw in the chat comments, you can throw in a character, an adjective, and an adverb. So let's see, I'm gonna give you an easy one first.
Okay.
So this will be the passage. Can you see it at the top?
Hold on, let me.
It should.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
So
okay.
we got Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham, and I'm randomizing right now. So, all right.
I want to make sure I can see this whole thing. I'm gonna fold. I think I'm gonna trying to figure out how to make you bigger. Give me 1 second.
That's what she said.
Yeah, I was like, somebody take that.
Aren't you cute? Okay, I see it now. Got it.
All right, so you're going to read this or narrate it as Melissa McCarthy, fierce, drunkenly.
Okay, hold on.
Pours another glass.
Yeah.
Let's see. Trying to think of which Melissa McCarthy, to be honest with you.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of Bridesmaids. I mean, you just go like, look away!
Melissa McCarthy drunk, and what was the adverb?
Fierce. Drunkenly, the adjective was fierce. So a fierce...
I will not eat them in a house. I'll not eat them with a mouse. I will not eat them. I will not eat them with a fox. I will not eat them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam, I am.
That's great. I like that one. That was really good.
Okay.
All right. So, Jolene, I'm going to give you this one.
Okay.
A little Romeo and Juliet, some Shakespeare. Wow, back to back. This is going to be Kristen Wiig. The adjective is girthy and outrageously. So, girthy, Kristen Wiig, outrageously.
Okay. All right. Come, gentle knight. Come, loving black proud knight. Give me my Romeo, and when I shall die, take him and cut him out into little stars. Stars, people. I don't know what this voice is. We'll continue with it. And he will make like the face of heaven so fine, and all the world will be in love with the night.
That was good. That was actually really good.
I don't know. I had my
that was
girthy, outrageous Kristen Wiig girthy. Sure.
Okay. I don't know. All right, John, back to.
Isn't she always?
Yeah,
okay.
She is. So, John, back to you. You got a little JR token, and it is going to be Ian McKellen. That's perfect. Ian McKellen. Thunderous. Wow, this one worked out. Dangerously. So Ian McKellen, thunderous, dangerously.
Mordor. The one place in Middle-earth we don't want to see any closer. And it's true. It's the one place we're trying to get to. It's just where we can't get. Let's face it, Mr. Frodo. We're lost. That was more of a... Yeah.
That was a little like noir.
Yeah, no, I was really saying like my Ian
Frodo, sweetheart.
Yeah.
No, I mean, think about it. Could you imagine Ian McKellen in a Maltese Falcon reboot set in like gritty's 1960s? I want that movie. I don't know about you.
Yeah. I mean, this is the trailer right here. It happened.
Right here, right now.
Right here.
We're making dreams come true.
Yeah. All right. So Jolene, this next one's for you. It's from Jesus.
Oh God.
And actually, this is great. So it's Jesus. Jesus is the character.
Jesus is the character?
Yep,
Okay.
Jesus is the character. Cloudy is the adjective. And gingerly is the adverb.
Okay, so say again. Jesus, cloudy, gingerly?
Yep.
It's just Jesus. I'll shorten it for you.
Yeah,
that's
basically that's Jesus. That's basically he's a
cloudy ginger.
He's a cloudy ginger.
That makes him sound like a meth
but not a white ginger, because Jesus was not white. Let's clear that.
Okay, yes.
Clear
Facts.
So Jesus, cloudy, ginger. Okay, if I take ginger as an adjective, it doesn't mean red.
It's gingerly, adverb, gingerly.
Okay. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy, does not boast. It isn't proud. Not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. I got a little loud there at the end, sorry.
That's great.
A careful Jesus? I don't know.
Yeah,
I love the idea
careful.
that Jesus is already doing the sign of the cross. He's like, oh yeah, this is me in 2 years. right here. This right here.
And they don't know, but it was just a nervous tick that he did. It doesn't. That's just what's happening.
That's the origin of the sign of the cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. Jesus just was neurotic.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone started doing it. They're like, oh, that's.
That's funny. All right, so John, back to you. This one, this one's in your honor because you are the quote gay Stephen King. I read that somewhere.
Stephen Queen, yeah, that's a whole story.
Well, we'll hear that. I definitely want to hear about it. But so this is from It, and let's see what the thing is. All right, the character is Britney Spears.
Yes.
The character is Britney Spears. Horny and beautifully. So Britney Spears, horny, beautifully.
I've got to push up my bra. Hold on, this is a lot.
And actually, hold on. So that's gonna be for Pennywise. So Pennywise is Britney. I have to because there's two characters here. So yeah. Pennywise is Britney Spears. It's Britney Spears, horny beautifully. And let's get George. George is Bob Ross. So Bob Ross, drunk, holistically. So. Britney Spears, we have some really good people. So Britney Spears, horny, beautifully. Bob Ross, drunk, holistically.
I mean, that's just me.
Perfect.
Okay. God, okay, sorry. Parenthetically, did anyone else watch the video where Britney Spears opens it up by saying, "Hi, I'm in my gym, but this is the one. Yes, it's the one I burned down, but we're fixing it." Okay, yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm waiting for it to come back on the screen because it keeps bouncing around.
Oh, is it gone?
Yeah, it is. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can center it on
There.
grid. Oh, here we go. I got it.
All right. So Britney Spears is Pennywise, Bob Ross is George, and then the narrator can be your voice.
I mean, do we even need a narrator? I don't, personally.
No.
Because when you hear these characters, you're
Choices.
Gonna know exactly
Choices.
You want your boat, Georgie? I only repeat myself because you really do not seem that eager. He held it up, smiling. He was wearing a boggy silk suit with great big orange buttons. His big tie electric blue. Down his front and on his hands were big white gloves, like the Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck always wore. Yes, sure, George said, looking at the storm drain.
Don't forget he's drunk. Bob Ross is drunk.
And a balloon. I've got red and green and yellow and blue. Do they float?
Oh my God.
The crown's grin widened. Oh yes, indeed they do. They float, and there's cotton candy. Georgie reached. Like me. Cheers, bitches.
Cheers. I think we'll just that was great. Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank
Cheers.
Wow.
My favorite was the drunk Bob Ross be like, "Do they flout?"
You know it. You know fucking Bob Ross, when that queen was drunk, she was really done. She was like all of the rage, all the happy clouds just left. And she was like, you know what? Fuck you, fuck your mother.
Oh my God.
I want a paintbrush. Yeah.
Oh my God. That was super fun. Thank you for indulging me. That was
great.
Awesome.
yeah, that was awesome. And good job, Jolene, as well.
Yes.
Oh God. Mine rolled acid trips. Jeez.
So, before we wrap up, I think we should announce the giveaway winner, which we randomly selected right before this call, and the winner is. Hold on, where is that page again?
We're going to edit all this out in post, right?
No. There's no editing. There's no editing. The winner is Instagram account Gaspace, who is Giulio. Congratulations, Giulio, in Italy. Thank you for participating, everybody. If you haven't already, definitely go pre-order The Brightlands by John Fram from Hanover Square Press, which comes out. Hold it right below you. There you go.
Yeah.
That's a hard copy or the physical copy if you want an audiobook of me lulling you with my sexy voice and 50 plus different speaking characters to sleep or wide awake because the action and suspense. You can also check out the audiobook as well, or both. John, thank you so much for jumping. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we conclude?
The big thing that I've been telling my followers a lot, and I would reiterate it, is just buy from Black bookstores if you can, like Black-owned bookstores. I have a link in my profile that's got quite a few. Buy direct. Just call them. It's amazing. Just call people, talk to them, and then if you can't do that, potentially buy from bookshop.org or IndieBound or we're in a tricky spot where the logistics of COVID have made it hard to get a book quickly. So I understand if you're dying to read this book right now, okay, maybe go to a major retailer. But if you can, buy independent. They matter more than you think. And also, indie booksellers are literally the backbone of the publishing industry. So keeping them alive means that I have a career in 10 years. So I've been doing my best not just because it's the right thing to do, but also because we all depend on independent bookstores to keep publishing alive. So support them if you can in this tough time, and I hope everybody's doing well. It's a weird time to be alive. Not everyone gets to have like a book come out, so be well.
Yeah. Well, there's John's Instagram again, if you want to check it out, so you can check out that link. And John, thank you so much again for jumping on the call with us. Really, really appreciate you taking the time. And congrats again.
Thank you.
Huge congrats. It's an enormous thing to have a book coming out like that. And you said once again it comes out next Tuesday?
July 7th.
July 7th, everyone.
Some bookstores I hear are being sneaky, so you could probably get a copy earlier if you really wanted to support an indie, but don't tell my publisher I said that.
Okay. Awesome. All right, John. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Mm-hmm. You too.
All right. So that was fun.
That was awesome. I feel intellectually stimulated. He exceeded my expectations as far as performance goes too.
I know. He nailed the Britney. I mean, I was like, he has to get Britney right. Like there's no excuse. There's no excuse. No, you were both great. It was a lot of fun. And the book really is like, for people who are listening, like definitely the book is really, really, really good. Read it, listen to it, both. I love that John, really wants to back indie and black-owned bookstores, and I think that's awesome. He really has a really good heart, and he's a really good fucking writer.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to it. I've got July. Yeah, July. That's where we are.
Yeah, we're July. Happy July 1st. We're in a new month. We're halfway through 2020. Where did the time go?
Is that not insane to you?
It is a little crazy.
Yeah.
It is a little crazy. But hey, I mean, it's, we'll have another episode where we talk about maybe 2020 and how this should be a year of growth, and we'll not today. Not today.
No, we're not have enough time for that today.
Not today. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Tune in next week, next Wednesday. We're going to have an awesome guest as well. And thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you guys. And for everyone that commented, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
All right. Bye, Joe.